I never imagined the word widow could feel so heavy and so false at the same time. My husband was dead, yes, but the love had already died long before that. When David's car flipped on that wet highway last year, the only thing that truly shattered that day was the illusion that he had ever been the man I married. I was 46, standing in the middle of a kitchen that suddenly felt too large, too quiet, too cruelly clean. The house smelled like lemon soap and burned coffee. That was how I grieved, by scrubbing until my skin ached. My daughters, Emma and Lily, were 17 and 15. They sat on the couch in silence that week, the kind of silence that isn't peace but paralysis. I tried to hold them, but they felt stiff like porcelain. How could they mourn a man whose lies had broken their childhood? They were the ones who found the truth, not me. They had borrowed his iPad to finish a school project, only to see messages no child should ever read. Pictures, dates, promises. 2 baby boys, born from a woman he met during a business trip. And my daughters, God bless them, told me everything. They thought they were protecting me. Instead, they became targets. David's parents, Harold and Margaret, never forgave them. They said my girls tempted Satan by turning me against my husband. They said family should stay together. I said family should not be built on betrayal. For a while after the funeral, I tried to stay civil. I let them visit on birthdays, on holidays. But every visit came with judgment. Margaret would walk into my kitchen, glance around like she owned the place, and sigh. He would hate to see this house without a man in it. I learned to smile without moving my lips. Eventually, I stopped answering her calls. When they filed a petition to take custody of my daughters, claiming I was unstable, that I was poisoning the girls against their father's memory, that's when the last thread snapped. We went to court. I told my lawyer, they'll never get my children. Over my dead body. I meant it. Months passed. The storm quieted. Until the morning of Lily's birthday. She didn't want a big party this year. She just wanted a day at the weekend farmer's market. A simple pleasure, sweets, laughter, sunlight. I handed her some cash, kissed her forehead, and told her, go have fun. Buy something ridiculous. Emma tagged along, but after an hour they separated. I stayed near the coffee stall, chatting with the baker who always saved me the freshest sourdough. When the phone rang, my stomach dropped before I even answered. Mom, it was Lily. Her voice was shaking, tiny, broken. Mom, some ladies are yelling at me. They won't let me leave. What? Where are you? Near the jam stand. I tried to walk away, but they said I'm unchristian. I didn't let her finish. My heart kicked like a drum. I ran. The market was alive with chatter and music. Families sampling honey, kids chasing pigeons, and then there, like a stain in the sunlight, I saw them. 6 women, gray-haired, rigid-backed, pearls gleaming like armor. They had formed a half-circle around my daughter. My little girl was pressed against a fruit stall, clutching her shopping bag like a shield. Where are your manners, young lady? One of them barked. Your grandmother is crying every night because of you. Another chimed in. Do you think Jesus approves of turning your back on your own blood? Lily's eyes darted to me the moment she saw me running. Relief flooded her face, and then guilt, as if she'd done something wrong just by existing. Excuse me, I said, stepping between them. Back away from my daughter. The woman in front, a tall one with perfect curls that looked sprayed in place, crossed her arms. You must be her mother. She said it like an accusation. You've raised her to be heartless. Your poor in-laws are devastated. I could smell her perfume, lilac and sanctimony. I turned to Lily. Go find your sister, sweetheart. Pay for your things and wait in the car. My voice was calm, steady. The way a dam looks right before it burst. As Lily ran, the circle tightened around me. You should be ashamed, another woman hissed. Your husband's parents just want to be part of their grandchildren's lives. Then maybe they should have taught their son not to cheat on his wife, I snapped. A murmur spread through them like wind through dry leaves. One gasped. Another clutched her cross. The leader narrowed her eyes. A good Christian wife forgives, obeys, and endures. I laughed. It was sharp and joyless. Then it's a good thing I stopped being a wife when your friend's beloved David decided his vows were optional. Someone behind her muttered, blasphemy. Someone else whispered, poor man, no wonder he died with sin around him. That did it. My hands trembled, but not with fear, with fury. You listen to me. You don't know what my daughters went through. You don't know the things your precious Margaret said to them. Don't you dare speak to my children again. By then the market's cheerful buzz had turned to awkward silence. People stared. A vendor coughed, pretending not to watch. And then the manager, a kind man named Joel, approached, rubbing the back of his neck. Ladies, maybe take this elsewhere, okay? It's a family place. The tall one sniffed. We're trying to help this poor woman return to the Lord. I'm not lost, I said quietly. But you might be. Joel gestured toward the parking lot. Please, ma'am. He looked sorry. I nodded. I gathered what was left of our dignity and walked to the car. The women followed at a distance, murmuring like a choir of vultures. When I slammed the door and turned the key, my girls sat silent in the back seat. Lily's face was blotchy, her hands clenched around a half-melted chocolate bar. Emma looked at me, her jaw set. Grandma sent them, didn't she? I think so, I said. Can we move? Like just disappear? Lily whispered. I swallowed hard. Not yet. I drove home with tears burning the corners of my eyes. Every red light felt like a test I had to pass without breaking down. That night, after they were asleep, I sat at the kitchen table in the dark, scrolling through my phone. The familiar blue glow of Facebook illuminated my hands. I wasn't looking for trouble, but trouble had already found us. Margaret's post was the first thing on my feed. When I opened Facebook that night, I wasn't looking for drama. I just wanted a distraction, something mindless to drown the echo of my daughter's crying. But there was Margaret's face, her church photo, the one where she's clutching a Bible and pretending to be holy, staring right at me. The post was long. So long I had to tap see more. And with every line I read, my hands began to tremble. According to her, I was a monster. Her poor son, the devoted husband and father, had died heartbroken because I poisoned our marriage. She said my daughters had abandoned their grandparents, leaving 2 innocent baby boys without the love of their big sisters. She wrote that she and Harold were left homeless, penniless and forgotten, while I lived comfortably off her son's money. It read like a soap opera written by a woman who'd never faced a mirror. And the comments, oh, the comments were even worse. Praying for you, Sister Margaret. You're an inspiration. The Lord sees your pain. One man even offered to drop off groceries for her, as if she were a starving widow instead of a manipulative old viper sitting in her 3-bedroom house paid for by my husband's insurance. But the part that truly made my stomach twist was how cleverly she hid the truth. She didn't mention the affair, of course not. Instead, she told everyone that the other woman was our surrogate. That I couldn't have more children, so we hired someone to carry twins for us. And that I rejected the boys because they were boys. It was brilliant in a sick, twisted way. She turned adultery into sacrifice, betrayal into charity. And now the entire church saw her as a holy grandmother abandoned by a cold wife. For a moment I actually felt dizzy. Then something in me, something small and sharp and long suppressed, started to burn. I clicked on the list of people who liked her post. I recognized almost every name. These were people who used to smile at me during Sunday service. People who'd eaten at our table. People who had called me family. I closed the app, but I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lily's frightened face at the market. Those women hadn't just humiliated her, they'd carried out Margaret's orders. And Margaret had done it all while hiding behind verses and fake virtue. By midnight I was sitting in my office staring at the cabinet where I'd kept every document from my divorce, just in case. I opened it. Inside were photos, screenshots, copies of messages, and emails that painted the real picture of what had happened. There was the text where David told his mistress, "I wish she'd just let me go. You're my real home." There was the picture of them kissing on our couch. My couch. The same one where he used to read bedtime stories to our daughters. And then there were the messages from his parents. "We understand, son. Sometimes a man needs to follow his heart. Don't worry, we'll help you convince her to forgive you later." And finally, the one message that made me want to throw my phone across the room. The girls deserve to feel guilty. They broke their father's heart and now look what happened. Maybe this is their punishment. They sent that 2 days after the accident. 2 days. My chest tightened. I thought about Lily, how she blamed herself sometimes. She once whispered to me, "If I hadn't told you, maybe he'd still be alive." I had hugged her and said, "No, sweetheart. The truth never kills. Lies do." Now looking at those messages, I knew exactly what I needed to do. For months I'd let them control the narrative. They wore halos while we hid in shame. That was about to end. I woke up with clarity. The kind that feels almost cold. I made breakfast, pancakes because Lily loved them and smiled through the motions. The girls needed normalcy, not more chaos. When they left for school, I cleaned the kitchen, took a long shower and stood in front of the mirror. I looked tired, older maybe, but not broken. You've done nothing wrong, I told my reflection. And it's time they knew it. I gathered the evidence. Everything. Then I drove to the print shop downtown. The clerk was a college kid with headphones around his neck. When he saw the folder, he hesitated. Is this like legal stuff? Something like that, I said. He opened one photo, the one of David and the mistress, lips locked, hands wandering, and froze. Wow. That's, heavy. Just print it, I said quietly. And make sure it's high quality. He nodded and got to work. The printer hummed, spitting out page after page of betrayal in vivid color. I stood there watching the paper stack grow taller, each sheet a fragment of the truth that had been buried under Margaret's lies. When it was done, I asked for 6 sets, bound in thick covers. He raised an eyebrow. You sure you want this many? Oh yes, I said. I want everyone to have a copy. The smell of ink followed me all the way home. I laid everything out on the dining table, sorting the photos, messages, and letters into neat sections, like chapters in a very ugly story. Then I started assembling them into binders, the kind the church used for hymn books. On the cover, I pasted a white label, David and Rebecca, a love story. Rebecca. That was the mistress's name. The irony made me smile. Inside, I placed the first photo, the one from our living room, and underneath I typed in big black letters. When vows mean nothing, even holy houses fall. The rest of the pages followed. The texts, the screenshots, the evidence of lies, the cruelty toward my daughters. And at the end, I added the message Margaret had sent me the night before David's funeral. Let's not make a scene. People don't need to know everything. I wrote under it, now they will. Took me hours. By the time I finished, the sun had set again, bathing the room in orange light. I looked at the stack of binders, neat, innocent-looking, almost sacred. I ran my hand over them. You wanted a sermon, Margaret, I whispered. Here it is. That night I didn't sleep much. Revenge isn't peaceful. It hums under your skin like electricity. I kept thinking about what might happen. What if they traced it back to me? What if the church turned against me too? But every time doubt crept in, I remembered my daughter's tears at the market, her tiny trembling voice. They called me unchristian. Oh. Enough was enough. Sunday morning arrived like any other. Sunlight slipping through the curtains, birds outside, the faint smell of coffee. The girls were still asleep when I left. I told them I was going for groceries. I wore a plain blouse and jeans. Nothing dramatic. Just another quiet widow running errands. The church parking lot was already half full when I got there. People were walking in, smiling, chatting about God and grace and gossip. I smiled back, that polite, practiced smile every woman learns after years of enduring judgment. Inside, the air smelled like candles and old wood. I hadn't been there in months, but the place hadn't changed. The same flowers on the altar, the same banners about forgiveness. Forgiveness. What a lovely word for people who've never truly been wronged. At the back of the church was the desk where the hymn books were kept. A young volunteer was arranging them into neat piles. Morning, I said cheerfully. Need a hand? She shook her head. Oh, I've got it, thank you. I set my purse on the edge of the desk, pretending to search for something inside. When she turned away to greet someone, I slipped my binders into the stack. 6 copies hidden among the rest. Perfectly ordinary. Perfectly damning. Have a blessed day, I told her as I left. Oh, you too, she said brightly. I walked out into the morning sun feeling lighter than I had in a year. No fireworks, no applause, just a quiet satisfaction humming beneath my ribs. Justice, I thought, doesn't always need to shout. Sometimes it just needs to be placed carefully, like truth tucked inside a prayer book. I went home, made coffee, and waited. The first whispers came by afternoon. A friend from town texted me. Did you see what's happening on the church page? I opened Facebook again. And there was chaos. Dozens of posts, comments, threads exploding with disbelief. Screenshots of the binders had surfaced, complete with the title page and the photo of David and Rebecca. Some defended Margaret at first, claiming it was slander. But the evidence was too clear. Too personal. Too detailed to deny. Within hours, the church's Facebook group looked like a battlefield. People were arguing, quoting scripture, demanding explanations. Someone tagged the pastor. Another tagged me. I ignored it all. Instead, I sat by the window sipping my coffee, watching the rain begin to fall. For the first time in months, the sound didn't make me sad. Sounded like cleansing. By Monday morning, the storm had a name. They were calling it the hymn book scandal. I didn't coin it, the church ladies did. Apparently, during Sunday service, someone reached for a hymnal, opened it, and froze. Gasps echoed through the sanctuary. One woman dropped her book like it burned her hands. Another whispered, "Oh dear Lord, that's him." Words spread like wildfire. The pastor stopped mid-sermon. Men turned red, women covered their mouths. Then the whispering turned into chaos. Half the congregation left before the final prayer. By evening, the church's Facebook group was an inferno. Some demanded the sinner responsible confess. Others quoted verses about adultery. And right in the middle of it, Margaret, my saintly ex-mother-in-law, posted a frantic message. "These are lies. Evil has entered our church. Someone wants to destroy my family." But screenshots don't lie, and the faces in those photos were unmistakable. The tone of the comments changed fast, from sympathy to disgust. "That's your son, Margaret. Didn't you say that woman was a surrogate? How could you let him cheat and blame his wife?" Within hours, her defenders disappeared. Even her closest church friends stopped commenting. By nightfall, she deleted her post, but the damage was irreversible. For 2 days I stayed silent. No gloating, no posts, no explanations. I just watched. The church's gossip network devoured itself. Half of them were furious about being lied to. The other half pretended they'd always suspected. The pastor released a statement about truth, repentance, and safeguarding community values. Translation: we can't be seen defending cheaters. Then came the knock on Margaret's door. 3 elders, grim-faced and polite, arrived to discuss recent revelations. By the next morning, the rumor mill confirmed what I already knew. Margaret and Harold were formally asked to step down from all church activities. No choir, no charity, no leadership. In other words, excommunication wrapped in courtesy. Meanwhile, my mailbox filled with letters. Some were apologies, handwritten notes from women who'd once gossiped about me after service. One said, "I judged you without knowing. I'm so sorry." Another read, "Your daughters deserve peace. Tell them we're praying for them." I read each one slowly, tears stinging my eyes. Not because I needed their pity, but because my girls finally had proof that the world knew the truth. When I told Emma and Lily what had happened, they looked stunned. Lily whispered, "So, they believe us now?" "Yes," I said. "They do." Emma crossed her arms, pretending not to care. "Good. Maybe now Grandma will stop sending her spies." I smiled. "Oh, she's got bigger problems now." The days that followed were almost poetic. Margaret tried to reclaim sympathy online. She posted about being persecuted, about how cruel people can be to the elderly. She hinted that a bitter woman had planted false evidence. But screenshots spread faster than salvation. Someone uploaded photos of the binders themselves. The crisp covers, the typed captions, the undeniable proof. Her attempts to deny it only made her look guiltier. Within a week, she and Harold stopped showing their faces at the market, at church, anywhere public. Neighbors stopped waving. Even the women who once marched like soldiers on her behalf avoided her at the grocery store. Justice didn't arrive in thunder. It arrived in silence. The kind that follows when the world finally sees who someone truly is. And maybe that's the most satisfying kind of revenge. Not the shouting, not the screaming, but the quiet fall from grace. One evening, just as I was making dinner, there was a knock. When I opened the door, Margaret stood there. She looked smaller, not physically but spiritually. Her immaculate hair was messy, her lipstick smudged. For the first time she seemed human. "I just wanted to talk," she said softly. I didn't invite her in. "What about?" "You destroyed us," she said. "Do you feel better now?" I met her eyes. "You cornered my daughter at a market and called her unchristian. You lied about me. About them. About everything. You did that yourself." She pressed her lips together. You think this is God's work? Exposing people? No, I said. It's karma's. For a second she almost looked like she'd cry, then her face hardened. You'll regret humiliating us. Maybe, I said. But at least I didn't start it. She turned and walked away. Her shoes clicked on the pavement, sharp, angry, fading. I closed the door and exhaled. That was the last time I ever saw her in person. A month later, the church community officially issued a public apology. Not to me, not directly, but to anyone who was misled by false testimony. It was enough. I didn't need them to name me. The truth already lived in whispers that needed no confirmation. The court case over custody quietly disappeared. Their lawyer withdrew, claiming emotional strain. The judge dismissed the petition. My daughters were safe. And slowly life started feeling normal again. Emma started applying for colleges. Lily began volunteering at a local animal shelter. We laughed again, awkwardly at first, then freely. Sometimes while folding laundry or cooking dinner, I'd think about how strange it was, how peace could come from something as simple as the truth. I've had people tell me revenge doesn't solve anything. Maybe they're right for themselves. But for me, it wasn't about vengeance. It was about reclaiming our names. When someone spends years twisting your story, sometimes the only way to heal is to take it back. Even if that means printing it on glossy paper and leaving it in a hymnal. Was it petty? Absolutely. Was it wrong? Maybe. Was it worth it? Completely. Because every time my daughters smile without fear, every time they talk about their father without shame, I remember that moment I stood in that church placing those binders on the table. That was the moment I stopped being the victim in Margaret's story and became the author of my own. The last time I logged into Facebook months later, her profile was gone. Deleted. The woman who'd once lived for attention now lived in silence. Her husband, Harold, passed away quietly that winter. At the funeral, only a handful of people came. I didn't go, not out of spite but out of peace. Some stories don't need a sequel. When I look back on it all, I realize that revenge isn't always loud or violent. Sometimes it's a slow unveiling, truth stepping out into the light while lies crumble to dust. It's the sound of a door closing softly after years of shouting. It's a mother tucking her daughters into bed, knowing they're finally safe from ghosts wearing halos. So if you ever find yourself standing in front of a monster who hides behind religion or reputation, remember this. You don't have to fight with fire. Sometimes you just have to hand them a mirror. If this story gave you chills, hit that like button and tell me in the comments, would you have done the same? And remember, when someone tries to bury you in lies, plant the truth instead. Subscribe for more stories where karma wears Sunday shoes and walks straight into the front pew.